It's kind of easy to see the appeal of the SUV, isn't it? When you think about it, you've got that slightly kind of higher driving position that makes you able to kind of lord it over other road users. They're usually big and boxy and practical, enough space for all the family. And of course, the ones that are four-wheel drive, when the weather does turn a little bit sour, or you do have to go off the beaten track, then you've got that ability. But they're never going to be the most handsome and prettiest of cars, are they? And I think maybe in terms of their design, then obviously making them look attractive can be quite difficult. So what do? Well, maybe, like BMW, you make them look distinctive. And I think looking distinctive is exactly what the new BMW iX has achieved. Yeah. Welcome to the iX, and welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we go on to this week's road test review of the new BMW iX, it is of course time for me to apply the usual housekeeping rules of subscribing to the channel, liking the videos and pressing the little bell button down below so you receive notification of when the next video goes live. By doing so, you help us remain fiercely independent and help us create great content for you. So thank you if you're already a subscriber. If you're not, please consider being one. Now, what do we have here? Well, it's BMW's new flagship i product, hence there's no numerical tag in its badge, it's just iX, the I for the electric and X for the SUV. So it sits at the top of the, it sits above the iX3, their sort of like rear wheel drive SUV that's all electric, but basically just an X3 that's been electrified. This isn't, this is bespoke, this is completely different to the X5, the X6, the X7. And different it most certainly is. It has raised quite a few eyebrows coming here today, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But it is a luxury SUV, and as I say, that is where the market is at the moment. And it's not inexpensive. But let's see if it can stand up to the competition by putting it through the AutoEV road test. So as always, let's start with the styling, because let's be honest, this is probably going to be the most controversial aspect of the iX. Like I said right at the start, it's very difficult to take a car like an SUV and make it kind of handsome looking, make it look pretty. So I think BMW have gone down the route of making it look very distinctive and very individual. And I think that really sums up BMW's styling at the moment. I have to say, it's better in the flesh than it is in photographs, but it's still not really a looker for me. As I say, it's distinctive, and maybe it's one of these things that will grow on us. I remember when Chris Bangle first started designing BMWs with things like the old BMW 5 Series, the E60 model, and everyone thought, oh, that's a bit challenging, whereas now it's sort of acceptable. Will we feel the same about something like the iX in, say, maybe 5 or 6 years' time? Or BMW onto something, and we're just not caught up yet? Well, I'll leave that up to you to decide. Anyway, what have we got? Well, we've got, of course, the big LED headlights. They've got this weird kind of demented rabbit kind of tooth kidney grille at the front, which I have to say I'm not overly sure of. I do like the way this kind of bonnet has the different kind of power bulges here, and the BMW badge inset in there. Of course, it's got the blue tinge like all BMW i product does. You've got some cooling down here, active flaps that open. Obviously you've got the camera and the radar guided cruise control is all embedded in there. Really slim headlights that just kind of sweep back. It's a BMW, you can't mistake it for anything else. You've got some vents in here that direct airflow around the wheels. Nothing fake on it, as I say, maybe apart from the grille, but they've made that a real styling feature. As I say, rather than being a grille, they've kind of infilled it and put these kind of distinctive kind of V-shapes in it. But yeah, it's maybe not helped by the colour that matches my jumper. I'm not sure, maybe I should have picked a blue one. One of the other things that I quite like about the styling that maybe you don't see that often from the outside is, like the i3, you can actually see the materials used in the construction, in the structure of the car, with this kind of carbon composite material here. I love that. I love opening the door to see something different. Yeah, I really like that. That's a nice touch and just adds to a little bit the kind of specialness of the car. Yep, and then round the side, it's still carrying on that kind of distinctive love it or loathe it kind of style, isn't it? This is a 50M Sport. I'll come on to trim levels later. These 22-inch wheels, so big old wheels, but they kind of don't look it. They do fill the arches well, and it's got quite a kind of a lowish bonnet line. It's okay. I'd say it's probably, in terms of its size, it's kind of X5-ish size. these kind of bronzed plastics here. I'm not 100% sure on them. You get the flush door handle, so you just lean in and open it up. Frameless doors, interesting for this size of car. And then this kind of black lower half here that kind of pinches the bodywork in a little bit. It doesn't make it look quite so tall and blocky, but there's no real feature on the outside of the car. There's no kind of distinctive sort of lines other than that one, so it's very kind of plain. It's very just, it's all in its shape here. This kick-up kind of window line, a little bit like in the Hofmeister kink, possibly. Maybe they try to integrate that in there. And then distinctive iX badge there. Sweeping roofline back into this big aero spoiler at the back. And talking of the back, yeah, actually it's probably one of its nicer angles of a Mars. I quite like these really slim headlights. They're smoked on the M Sport 50, on the Sport model, not the M Sport. They've got a slightly different tinge to them. This kind of bronzed badging here. But yeah, it's, you know, diffuser at the bottom. As I say, it looks better in the flesh than it does in pictures, but I'm still not 100% sure about it. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. So, practical then. Well, yes, 500 litres in total, to be honest with you, before the series seats are folded. It feels quite big, this, when it's above you. I think taller people might have to just kind of watch themselves on that, if I'm being honest. I'm quite short, and it feels quite close to my head. Anyway, there we go. 500 litres, as I say. You've got some good underfloor storage there for your cables. One of the benefits of obviously being on a bespoke platform. A removable parcel shelf, which is nice, really good thing on the security, so that can come out. And you can extend the boot as well, because obviously the rear seats do split fold. Now that will take the total size up to over 1700 litres. So yeah, that is quite a decent sized boot. I mean, obviously things like the Tesla Model X is slightly bigger, but it is a physically bigger car overall. But yeah, that's fairly impressive, and I would think would probably meet most people's needs. You've got some nice built kind of tie downs in the back there if you're using kind of straps and cables and stuff, and also you've got a little hook on that side there, and a little 12-volt socket there as well. So yeah, it's probably going to meet most people's needs. Just if you're over 6 foot, just mind your head, yeah? Now, the benefit of having that bespoke platform comes to the fore in terms of its rear accommodation, because there is acres of space back here. I've got the seat set up for myself, which, as you know, I'm 5'7", 5'8". I've just got loads of knee room. I can get my feet underneath the front seat. There's a completely flat floor across. There's no kind of raised middle section either, so actually a third person can sit there with reasonable comfort. What more could you really want? There's some USB-C charging ports in the back of these seats. There's a little thing that flips down and has something in it, which I don't know what it is. There's some decent door bins as well that you can get, you know, good size water bottle into. That's absolutely fine for that. There's some mat pockets in the back which are rigid and feel really well built. We've got a flip down armrest in the centre with even more cup holders. Pop your bottles in. In this model I've got rear climate control, heated rear seats on the outer two seats, which is really nice to have. And talking of which, it's difficult to see from the camera angle, the way the seat is, it's shaped round here. So I've got a nice bit of support around my right hand shoulder, and obviously the same on the left. It's really nicely trimmed, it goes right out to the door. That's a really thoughtful piece of design execution. It's not a hard bit of plastic. So actually when you are sitting, you do feel like it's a really nice big comfy sofa. It seems odd saying that, but I really do like it. So, and of course the benefit of being inside the car is you don't have to look at it from the outside. There's enough headroom, obviously, as I say, even if you're over 6 foot. I mean, obviously I'm not, but even with this big panoramic glass roof, there's going to be plenty of room for you back here. So yeah, lounging space, accommodation wise, full marks BMW, full marks. Now if the exterior has divided opinion, the interior may divide a little bit of opinion too, but I have to say I love the interior of this car. You've got this curved display here. I don't actually know quite what size that is, but it's fairly large, and it's just a continuous display, and it's obviously perched onto the dashboard that then comes out. It's below the windscreen line, so nothing interrupts your view ahead, which is fantastic. And it brings back a lot of the things that I used to love about BMW back in sort of like the 80s. That kind of curved dashboard of the old sort of like 3, 5 and 7 series that was all ergonomic towards the driver, and that's kind of what it reminds me of, but the very modern take on that. You've obviously got, you can use this as a touch screen, depending obviously on what you want to do, or you can use this sort of crystal iDrive controller, which again, you know, you look back when BMW first brought the iDrive controller out and everybody was like, oh, what's that? But it's now one of the best that you can use, I think, and it just feels nice to the touch and everything's very tactile. And obviously when you get to, you know, whatever you want, whether it's your Spotify or whether it's your Android Auto, your Apple CarPlay, which is obviously in here as well, then it's straightforward and easy enough to use. And obviously the front passenger can also use it too. This switch pack area here is interesting and worth discussing too, because I wasn't quite sure whether they were going to have any feedback, because what you have is a piece of wood here, like you get on the kind of the bamboo, not the bamboo, the wood that's on the i3. It's a similar style to that. And then of course, but they've buttons embedded into them. And I thought, well, how does that work? But actually they've got real nice haptic feedback to them. So when you press it, it does a nice little click, so you know you've touched it. And I love that. I think it's fantastic. You've got your transmission selector here in this sort of same kind of crystal that you've got the iDrive controller, and a start-stop button here, electronic park brake, volume control for the audio system here, or obviously you can use it on the steering wheel. You've got massive storage bin in there with a slightly higher raised section. You've got bottle hold, 2 cup holders down there, 2 USB-C ports, there's a wireless charging pad. This is like the kind of floating console that we've seen on the Kias. It just sticks out a little bit. You've got a little bit of a, I don't know, a little wire feed through there if you want to just feed your wires down through there into the USB-C ports and then store your phone actually in there, which is handy. It's a wireless charging pad there. And it's very clean, it's very uncluttered. I've got the funny feeling this is all kind of vegan kind of leather that's on the dashboard as well, because it's got a little kind of symbol over there which makes me think that it is. And these seats as well, they're beautifully supportive and comfortable. I really like them. They've got enough cushion in them, they hold you well underneath the thighs. They've got enough side support at the back, and then they've got these really soft sort of like padded head restraints, which are just nice. The only downside I'm not really keen on is the shape of this steering wheel, I must admit. You know, I like the 2-spoke design, but I'm not kind of sure on this kind of hexagonal wheel. I would just like to have a round wheel, but we all know I'm a bit of a dinosaur. This kind of brushed, kind of rose gold, bronzy plastic as well. I'm not 100% sure on that, although it does tend to work on the spec of this car. The driver display is nice and easy, very, very straightforward to look at as well. Easy enough to use. Everything's within sort of like, you know, you've got your power meter on this side, your transmission selector here. I've got my range, outside temperature, time and battery percentage, and a speedometer there. A really good head-up display as well, so it will actually it will reflect the map on the head-up display as well. So as you're coming up to a roundabout, it actually shows you the map on the windscreen, which I have to say I really like. That works well for me. On the doors, it's weird as well. They've got the same kind of crystal effect kind of controls for the seats, which are up here, but then you've got the kind of black regular plastic for the wing mirrors and windows down there. So yeah, it's a bit of an odd mix of materials, but I think the interior works really well. And as I say, the driving position is typical BMW. It's exactly as you'd expect. You get a nice view forward, vision's good. You obviously got little kind of quarter lights there, but they're frameless doors. They're not double glazed, which is quite something. And I have to say, as we'll go on to, the refinement of the car is superb. But yeah, as I say, the layout in here, there's very little to actually complain about. There's good equipment level as you'd expect on the car. Obviously you get Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. There's various other apps that you can have in the car as well. As I say, there's Spotify, you can log on to that. There's parking apps that you can put in here as well. You know, all the usual kind of, you can use the car as a Wi-Fi hotspot. You can control your messages from in here. So there's very little, as I say, to complain about. It seems like a lot at first, but in typical BMW fashion, it's all nicely controlled and it's all sort of like well laid out and easy to read. And of course, once you get used to knowing where everything is, it's simple. But I love the uncluttered feel of it. As I say, it really reminds me of the i3, which is one of my favourite interiors. There's an open floor ahead of you here. We've got a glove box in there, which, yeah, you get a pair of gloves in that. That's absolutely fine. As I say, there's door bins down the side. They'll take a water bottle, and you've got the 2 holders there. So Yeah, it's a very luxurious feeling cabin, this, and I really love this display. Certainly BMW, one of BMW's best, I reckon. Now the iX is going to come with two battery sizes, either a 71 kilowatt hour battery or a 105 kilowatt hour battery like I've got here. Their respective ranges, according to WLTP figures, are going to be 257 miles for the smaller battery and 380 miles for the larger battery. It will also take ultra rapid charging speeds, meaning you'll be able to go from 10 to 80% in 31 minutes for the smaller battery and just 35 minutes for the bigger battery. Now I've only got the car for a short period of time, so I'm not really able to test those claims and those efficiencies, but given my experience with the BMW electric, the I range, I think that's going to be pretty good. Now there are two variants of the iX. There is the 40, which has 326 brake horsepower, which gives a 0 to 60 time of 6.1 seconds. Or there's this car, the 50, which is over 500 brake horsepower. I think it's 523 brake horsepower, and that then has, and that drops the 0 to 60 time, just checking my notes there, 4.6 seconds. So quite sprightly for a big car. But again, regular viewers will know I'm not a big lover of performance SUVs. I think an SUV should be just a big practical lumpy big car to drive around, and I don't necessarily want something this size to throw around and be performance orientated. However, what I will say is, if you are going to have that performance inbuilt, then the rest of the car needs to keep up with that. The rest of the engineering needs to keep up with it, and I'm pleased to say that the iX does. There's a little bit of body roll. I mean, it's a big tall car, there's no doubt, you know, you can't get away from that. It is a big old car, but it's not out of its depth. I mean, as I say, it's not something I want to start chucking around a mountain pass, but it's okay. It's pretty decent in terms of how its chassis feels, in terms of its composure. I always dislike the term, but I'm going to use it. You can feel the DNA of BMW in this car. That's one thing BMW are just doing so well with the i products, is making them drive like BMWs. You don't feel like you don't feel isolated from the performance, from the actual drive of the car, in the sense of you feel connected to it, but you are isolated from, you know, sort of like extraneous noises. The refinement is one thing that I will say is excellent in here. We've got big frameless windows, frameless doors on these cars, and I wasn't going to be quite sure how that would work, but my goodness me, it is quiet in here at motorway speeds. There's a little bit of road noise, that I can feel, and it's almost coming down through from the footwell. But otherwise, this is nice. You could see actually doing big miles in this car. Now, of course, price-wise, you would expect it to be like that. Of course you would. It's not an inexpensive car. But even so, it is an impressive piece of machinery. Now, the brakes are good. The brakes have got a nice feel to them. Again, it's that typical BMW feel to them. You press the pedal, you actually feel like you're stopping the car. The steering's the same. It's got a lovely weight behind the steering, and it just, you know, I'll keep coming back to it. It feels like a BMW steering rack. They've done really, really well engineering this car into feeling like that. So the engineers have done their job. They've done their job well. Still not so sure about the styling department, but there we go. Now, in terms of the driving position, it is, well, there's little to fault up here, to be honest with you. You've got this lovely, as I say, big kind of raised centre console armrest. I'm not so keen on this oddly shaped steering wheel, if I'm honest, this hexagonal wheel. I find that quite odd, if I'm honest. Well, it's okay, it does the job, it turns the wheels, and it's got the nice kind of thin two spokes, like the little BMW i3 that I've loved for so long. But yeah, the actual overall shape of it, it's just, and it's also still bordering on, BMW always still seem to border on the slightly fatter rims than I'd ideally like. But it's okay. All the controls fall nice and easy to hand. Everything sort of works as you expect it to do. You know, there's nothing, you know, the ergonomics are exceptional. This floating console, which we'll go into in bigger detail later with this kind of crystal eye drive controller and gear selector. When I thought it was a bit over stylized when I first saw it, but actually using it, it's quite good. It works really well. So yeah, there is little to fault in terms of the way the car feels, the way it drives. The suspension is very good. There's an excellent level of comfort in this car. It just feels like it's capable of wafting you know, down through France or, you know, or wherever. It deserves to be more than just a school run car, this one. Now, as these cars do get more sophisticated in terms of cameras and autonomous driving, I'm not very sure that I'm ready for an autonomous car as yet, personally myself. But what I do like is things like it's doing at the moment. For instance, it knows that there's a car in front of me, so as I come off the accelerator, it's starting to activate the brake regen, whereas when we were up on the open road there, and there was nothing in front of me and I came off the accelerator, it would coast. And that's pretty decent. I like that. Now actually, there's a good level of grip from the car, and when you do start to punt it down a more challenging road, it has composure, there's no doubt about it. It's certainly not out of its depth. I don't think, from a term of view of passengers, they'd be particularly happy about it. And so it's not something I would particularly recommend. But as I say, in terms of the chassis grip, in terms of the suspension's capabilities, it is very capable. As I say, there's a good level of grip on the kind of greasy road that I'm on today. But as I say, I just feel that it's just slightly, as I say, out of its depth by doing that. It's more the kind of cruising ability, more the kind of refinement with this car shines. And then trying to hustle it down a road. I think when you go back to when they first brought out the X5, I think people were quite amazed that a car of that stature could drive as well as it did, and it had the composure of the chassis that it did have. That's one thing. I think we're kind of over all of that now, but I still don't think these are cars that need to be chucked down back roads, and you know, otherwise you'd have kids' milkshakes all up over the back windows and stuff. But it handles itself well. I mean, there's no denying that. It doesn't feel too heavy. That doesn't feel as wooden as the likes of the e-tron. Now the e-tron S is, you know, as I say, it's a very, very fast car. But the downside with the e-tron S is it's still an e-tron. There is still an element of just something about it that's not quite right for me. It's still a bit wooden, still a bit lead-footed. The iX isn't. The iX is a bit more fleet of foot, and I like that. I just don't feel it's necessary, and I don't think people will be buying it because of that. Now, first of all, please excuse the slightly shaky camera. I've had to mount it slightly differently whilst I'm driving, because I kind of really wanted to show you this satellite navigation system in operation. It's very, very clever. So we're coming up to a roundabout, and you can see what it's now doing is it's using the front camera to show us the road ahead, and also sort of like an augmented reality in terms of what arrows of where I need to be going. Now that is a really, really clever system, and I really, really like that. I think that is absolutely outstanding. And as well as that, it's also giving me a reflection of the map on the head-up display on the windscreen, which obviously I can't show you at the moment because I'm driving. But that's really, really clever. And I know Mercedes have something very, very similar, and the Kia on the EV6 that I've been driving of late, that has a similar sort of augmented reality system as well. But yeah, I'm really impressed by that, and that's another big tick in the BMW box as far as I'm concerned. The iX is going to be priced from the 40 Sport, which is going to come in a shade under £70,000, and then go up to £92,000 for the iX50 Sport. If you decide to go for the M Sport trim like I've got here, then you can add on another £3,000 onto those prices respectively, and then obviously various colours and trims and options that will be available thereon in. So what other cars might you be considering if you're looking at the BMW iX? Well, of course, its main rival, as BMW sees it, is going to be things like the Tesla Model X when it arrives back in the UK in its revised form, and of course Audi's e-tron, which is also due to get a midlife facelift very, very soon. The Mercedes-Benz EQC is a little bit smaller than this car, and BMW see it more against the iX3, but I suppose by the time you've got an EQC spec'd up, then you can be knocking on the door of the price of the iX. Jaguar's I-Pace is much smaller, but it's much more dynamic, but again, ticking a few options on the price list of that car can easily see it gracing over £90,000. You may want to move away from SUVs, in which case you've got the Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo, a car that starts range-wise from about £80,000 and goes all the way up to £130,000. But the big problem that BMW are going to be facing very, very soon is with the new Range Rover, because that is going to be the first all-electric Land Rover product out there. And that is the king of the SUVs, let's be honest. So, it's not going to have an easy time of it. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new BMW iX. We like its interior design and comfort, its driving dynamics, the potential range of the bigger battery 50 model, and its refinement. We don't like the styling is still an acquired taste. The price can get quite expensive with options, and some of the exterior plastic trim feels a little bit cheap for this class of car. You know, I'm not sure there's been a car that's divided my opinion so much since I started testing cars for AutoEV than the BMW iX. I absolutely adore the way this car drives. It's very dynamic. I mean, it's quick. As I say, I'm not a big lover of performance SUVs, but as they go, this is right up there with them. But it's comfortable and it's refined, its interior is stunning, it's such a nice place to be, and of course it's very futuristic on the inside. It reminds me of the futuristic interior of the i3 and it's building on that. I think it's a wonderful place to spend time in. But then you get out and you look at it. Now maybe, as I say, it's going to be one of these designs that's going to grow on us over time and we're going to look back in 3 or 4 years' time and go, what was all the fuss about? But for the moment, I'm not 100% sure. When we drove the iX3 a few weeks back, what impressed me with that car was it took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, and it's the same with the iX. It has qualities that shine through, even if it has a face that only a mother could love. Thank you, as always, for watching AutoEV. Please remember to like the videos and subscribe to the channel and press the little bell button down below to receive notification of when our next video goes live. As I say, by doing so, you allow us to be independent and bring you the content that we're able to do. And if you haven't been there, remember we're also on autoev.co.uk, where our back catalogue of road test reviews on YouTube are just waiting for your viewing pleasure. And remember, we're on all social media too, so Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Go and give us a like if you will. In the meantime, all that's left for me to say is thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded.